Hey, everybody. How are you doing today? We finally made it. I like to stay pretty prompt, but we've got some technical difficulties today getting some folks on. So Chad is troubleshooting some stuff, and we've got Russ here. So they're both off the same channel. Let me turn this off. So am I audible to everybody? Is there any echo or anything like that? Well, if we have any audio problems or anything, by all means, let me know as we go, and I'll try and tweak it accordingly. But we should have a pretty fun day today. We've got some really cool folks stopping by. I've got Daniel Parker from USARK Florida is going to stop by, and we're going to talk about the auction that's going on there. Phil Goss from USARK National will stop in. Should be about 1 o'clock, I think, is when he's going to free up. And we'll talk a little bit about what's going on there. Hey, John, how you doing? Heidi. Let's see, Christina. Hey, there's my buddy. I was hoping you'd make it. And my mom's on here, so outstanding. Who else we got? Lance. Hey, it's good to see you guys, man. I'm glad you made it. So who else we got? Garrett Hartle's going to stop in, too. We're going to talk about Retic Fest. I'm finally getting myself up there this year, so next weekend we will be hopefully getting you guys some footage from there. So let me run this intro because I like it, and we will be right back momentarily. Whether you're a lifelong keeper or just getting started, help us encourage responsible keeping, conservation, and public education in the interest of keeping our reptiles safe and healthy as we protect them for future generations. You're invited to spend time with us as we experience these awesome animals together on Intrepid Exotics. Woohoo! You know, I've had some people tell me that I needed to cut that intro out of my videos because it was repetitive. And then as soon as I took it out of a couple, people were like, "Where's your intro, man? It thing's so cool." So I just left it in there. Let's see. I got to get this banner going. So initially, hey, there we go. All right. So initially, my thoughts in doing today is, and as it says in the title, there's a few guys that I really like in the community. Chad Harsh and Russ and Jordan from Heartland Reptiles. They're all really awesome guys, and they've all recently started their YouTube channels. And I'm a very big proponent of, trying to get good people out there as much as we can. We've got entirely too much bad out there. We need to make sure that we're supporting the guys that are doing the right thing. So I wanted to get out, get them some exposure. And in the course of things, this is a good opportunity to get some updates on what's going on with USARK Florida, talk about Retic Fest, and try and have one of those positive live streams because we seem to have so many of them that are kind of adversarial lately. And we've just got too much of that. So I will ask a couple things. I've got a little bit of help moderating and so forth. Definitely want to keep everything polite. Feel free to ask any questions you want, but we are not engaging in any drama. We are not slamming anybody. We are not doing anything except talking to reptiles and what's going on and what we can do to make the community better. So without further ado, I am going to bring Chad and Russ in. If you guys are ready. Looks like you guys are just about ready. There is Russ.
What's up?
Hey, fellas.
I was getting coffee. Doing? Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's no... I would definitely not ask you to forego your coffee.
Yeah, I think we all need that.
Man, hey. Beardless Russ.
Yeah. I slipped with the trimmer, so I had to take it off. It'll be back soon.
This is actually the first time I'd seen Russ, so I don't have a point of reference for the beard.
Yeah,
usually there's a beard.
Let's see. So
that's why I try not to trim mine, man. I always end up having to shave it off. So,
man, I can't even grow one. I'll get a little homeless looking on the chin. Nothing grows on the sides. I gave up.
My one buddy can't grow anything either.
Yeah, I mean, back in my Army days, I tried the little 70s porn star mustache for a little while, and that didn't go over well either. So, So let's see. For everybody who doesn't know you guys, I know Chad's been pretty active in the community, as well as Russ. I was actually talking with Russ a little bit last night. He was helping me troubleshoot this, and very intelligent guy. He's running names of animals past me, and I'm just glossy-eyed deer in the headlights. Like, what is that? So he's a really good dude, and Russ and Chad have both started their own YouTube channel. So I will let you guys amongst each other kind of go over what you started and what your intent is behind it, introduce yourself and all that kind of stuff.
You want to start it off, Chad?
No, go ahead, beardless.
All right. So
I need to grab a hair tie, actually. So give me a second, because it's too hot for this.
Chad and I actually met through Brian Cusco's channel and started talking. And, you know, day by day, we kind of became best friends. And as time went on, everybody kept bugging us to start our own thing. So originally we had started with just simple Instagram lives. And we did that for most of this year, pretty much every week. And then from there, we decided that it was just time to take it over on YouTube. And here we are. So tomorrow will be our second episode. We have an awesome guest lined up. I'm really excited for it.
Oh, yeah? Is that a secret guest, or can you tell us who it is?
No, it's posted. We'll have Megan Kelly on with us tomorrow, Megan Conda.
Nice. Awesome, awesome.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun.
And she was out in Anaheim, right? Wasn't that the I think you were out there too, right,
Chad?
Chad?
Chad were talking to him.
Yeah, I was out there. Yeah.
Cool. Well, outstanding. And of course, you guys can see the banner out here, man. If you guys are watching this, make sure you're liking the videos, get down to comments and all that stuff, and make sure you're hitting up Reptile Nerd Radio is what we're what these guys have got going on out there. So we definitely want to get out and support these guys. Let's see. I did have where are we going here? Here we go. And I don't want to keep these folks waiting too long. First person I wanted to bring on with us today is going to be Garrett Hartle, and we are going to talk about Retic Fest. There we go.
Damn.
What's up, everybody? How you guys doing?
Outstanding, man. How are you?
What's going on, man?
Good. Good to see you guys. Thanks for having me on, Tim, Russ, Chad. Good to see you guys as well. How you fellas holding up?
Pretty good.
Warm. I just got done folding hot clothes in a room full of reptiles, so I'm sweating.
We're doing the same thing here. I'm doing a little bit of building and stuff, obviously getting ready for Retic Fest next weekend and all the people coming in. So
right.
Saturdays are build days. Russ, I like your poster. It's pretty cool, my guy.
Yeah, it is pretty nice, huh?
Very cool. Yeah. So anyway, it's good to see you guys. It's been a little while. So
yeah.
Been a long time coming, man. When I initially started this, I wanted to do live streams every weekend, and life gets in the way, and all of a sudden it's like 6 months since I've done one. Okay, we got to start doing this again.
That's the hardest, I think, for anybody that does any social media is just the constant. I mean, it's absolute dedication to it. You know what I mean? It's ruthless. You know, it's great when things are great, but then when it gets hard, it gets really hard. So got to keep it up.
So that's what you guys got to look forward to. You're gonna hit your first 1,000 subs, and you're gonna be like, "Woohoo! This is great!" And you're gonna keep going. You're gonna like, "Ugh, I don't have enough time for this." How's this gonna work?
It's like a running joke that I'm like the worst at promoting anything that I'm doing, right? So we, like Russ was saying, we do the Instagram lives every Sunday, like the same time every Sunday for this whole year. And it'll be like, Friday night. And I'm like, hey, by the way, this is who's going to come on, and it's like a running joke. So I've been trying, since we moved it over to YouTube, I've been trying a little harder to not be terrible at promoting.
It's tough, man. Self-promotion for me is the same thing. I'm
honestly bad at social media in general.
Right.
I still don't even know how to make decent posts.
I just get lucky, honestly.
See, Garrett's got this stuff down to a science.
Yeah, just overworked. I gotta blame my boss for that. You know what I mean? He's ruthless. You can ask any of my employees. So yeah,
Nice.
no, I mean, it is rough. You have to literally like schedule it out. I mean, I don't know. I've got just sitting on my desk, I've got layers and layers of, little notes and things, keeping myself, okay, this day, this time, I got to do that for this long, and I have everything set up. And so, some of the stuff, like what you guys are, sounds like what you guys are starting is a great time. You mentioned meeting through Cusco. It's amazing how many of the good, positive people in this industry have ties with Brian Cusco. He's like a positivity magnet, that guy.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
yeah, for real. But we had our Searchable as Reptiles podcast going for a long time, and we're like, let's make it easy on both of us. We both put out, we put out 3 videos a week right now on YouTube. It's actually more than that if you count shorts and stuff, and then there's all the other platforms. But we had our monthly thing, and we're like, we should be able to hit this once a month. And then as COVID hit and people stopped traveling and stuff, we started doing more and more of it remotely. And then we're like, we don't like doing this remotely. We like hanging out. We're not at like a lot of reptile shows, anything like this. So we kind of hit it when we can hit it now and have some fun with that stuff. But it is pretty tough if you want to grow it into something that becomes a platform, right? I mean, that's the goal, is like, here's a platform for information sharing. And the nice thing about setting one up yourself is you can dictate the flavor of it, right? What's the mission of that? How's that going to be? And then if you want that platform to have influence, you just have to stick with it for a really long time. I mean, you can look at the USARK official YouTube channel. For that, USARK is huge. I think most people in the reptile industry love USARK. Not everyone is a member, although there's a lot of awesome people out there helping people get their memberships and things like that. And all you have to do is jump on their YouTube and hit subscribe. But the subscription there after a year and some is quite low for a subscription to even USARK's channel. So you gotta put the work in.
It's honestly a shame, because the amount of work that, Phil, Vanessa, all the people who are, doing the most for them, the amount of work they do is one part, but then the amount of work that other people also try and do to help, it just blows my mind that more people aren't jumping on that. You would think that you would, and then like myself and a bunch of other people kind of got together, and we were like, let's start offering people memberships. Just hit us up, we'll get you a membership.
That's fantastic.
You don't need to do anything, just we'll pay for it. And I've had one person hit me up since we started doing that, and it's like, man, like I just, it's free. I like free stuff. I know. I mean,
yeah.
And it's been one person who hit me up, and we're trying though. We're trying to do what little we can.
I think the more people that get into that is great. And I see in the chat here, you guys have an amazing audience in here, but a lot of times the people that are doing the most work are the people that are jumping onto these platforms and supporting them. So unfortunately, we become a little bit of an echo chamber, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's much more about trying to meet the masses and things like that. So, but it's the same with everything. I mean, you got to get the word out there. You have to put it out to, right? Like you guys would all be part of my standard circle. We run into each other on social media constantly, right? But then I have a circle, like I was just talking to some guys at a lumber yard that I was picking up some stuff for this building that I'm doing. And I'm like, oh yeah, you got to go check it out. Blah, 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 blah. And that's where everyone needs to go. It's like, who are you in contact with outside of your echo chambers, and how can you spread the word to them? So, and yeah, it's tough. Negativity spreads like wildfire. Positivity is slow.
It seems to crawl a little bit slower, doesn't it?
Yeah.
For sure.
I may have secretly sticker bombed to the restaurant that I work in with a USARK sticker, and it seems like nobody's noticed it yet, which is cool. But I also wear the shirts to work, so people will come in and get food, and they'll be like, oh, what's this? So then I get to kind of give them this short little spiel about how I'm a weirdo that keeps snakes in my room. And it's kind of cool, because some of the regular customers will come in and they're like, hey, you got any new pictures? They'll come in with their kids or whatever, and hey, you got any pictures of snakes or anything? And I'm like, well, yeah, I was just at Anaheim. Here's a 14-foot anaconda. And it's like, it's kind of cool, you know, that these people probably have no interest in keeping reptiles, but even spreading the word. I actually, to be fair, I almost enjoy talking to those people more than reptile people, because the looks on their face when you're telling them, hey, I have this snake and that snake, and it's really an enjoyable thing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I've gotten 3 different people at work to not only join USARK, but they are now reptile keepers as well. And when I first started talking about it, they were terrified of them. They came up to my house and held my snakes, and a little bit later, they wanted their own.
Mm-hmm.
I had that happen at an old coworker of mine came over to my house one night after work with his girlfriend, and she's like scared of reptiles. And at the time, I still had my hog nose that Russ has now. So I was like, okay, well, here's a really small one. And I showed her, and she's like, oh, it's really cute, you know? And she like touched it, and you could tell she was hesitant. And they were here for probably an hour. And at the end of it, I was like, can I put a 9-foot snake around you? And she's like, well, yeah, sure. So I pulled out my, one of my retics and was like, here you go. And she's like smiling, taking pictures with it. I was like, yeah, it happens.
It's so funny. One of the foremen that I look out for on my job is from Africa. The most terrified human being I've ever seen of snakes in my life. I always razz him about that, being from Africa. I mean, like, those are lions and tigers out there, man. What's the problem? He's like, no. He's just like, I'm from West Africa. We're in the city. We don't have that stuff there. Get it away from me. But one of these days, I kept saying by the end of the summer, I was going to have him take a picture with my boa. So we'll see if I'm successful or not. So, Garrett, man, the Retic Fest thing. How long you guys been doing that? I know this is going to be my first year out there.
It's only the 3rd year.
Oh,
so
yeah?
The first year, so we've been in this new building for about a year and a half, right? And maybe it's a little bit longer than that now. I think it'll be 2 years come October. So the first year we were supposed to be in this building. It took me almost a full year just to do all the crazy bank stuff and everything to get a business loan to get a building. And holy smokes, if you don't want to go really, really, really big, I recommend nobody ever even try to do that. Just keep it at, there's like plateaus in the hobby, right? Like this, I'm growing, this is fun. And then you kind of plateau as like, say, a home hobbyist or whatever. You got to take it to the next level or next level. But the ends, the plateaus are feel limiting, but sometimes they're the sweet spot. Right. So we're pushing up and up. But at any rate, the first year was like 50 people at my house. It rained the whole time. Any of you guys who were there know what's up. But we had a great time because just like you guys are talking about, it's funny when you first get in love with the reptiles, whether you're a kid or adult, when you start, you're in love with the animals. And you're out there going, these are so cool. And you can't find anyone to listen to you because everyone thinks that you're nuts, but even those are fun conversations to have. Then eventually you build up a community and you start doing this kind of thing. But if you get involved in the purchasing and sales side of it, all of a sudden, business and live animals is a very, very difficult thing to balance in a good and positive way.
Right.
It's a huge challenge. So even Reach Out Reptiles as a business, those of you guys that watch my content will know this. I've been calling this the grand experiment. Like, I don't know if we can even do this. Is it possible or what? Ever since the beginning. But the idea of Retic Fest was actually just to bring the community out. It's so different when people are behind this screen, right? You know what I mean? We feel like we have extra freedom to judge people or air our opinions or try to look smarter than somebody else or whatever, I don't know, whatever people get involved in these communities online. It's not just the reptile community, it's everybody. But when you get everyone together in person, face to face, it's so much better just to hang. You're like, whatever minute details that are, I think, insignificant in the scheme of things that separate one person from the next, they all kind of go away after that, Like Chad, you and I were hanging out, what was it, 2 years ago at Pomona? Right? And you were
I walked by you. walked by you because you were super busy with like 300 people. Okay, it was like 10 people bombarding you with questions and stuff, and I didn't talk to you. And then I felt stupid later because I was talking to Cusco. Like, Cusco's local to me, so I was talking to him, and he's like, "Yeah, you messed up. There's always a crowd around him. Just go talk to him."
Yeah, no,
So
I remember.
I actually
Megan Conda's Anaconda there, and I was like, "Oh, what's up?"
Did we?
Yeah.
So I've been sober for a month, but not sober me in the past has a hard time with memory. You know, I kind of. So.
Yeah. Well, at any rate, yeah, it wasn't a huge thing, and I definitely know those shows get busy and stuff like that. But when you're at a reptile show, one of the great things is, you know, you see people's logos and their branding, and social media is always just us posting whatever we want, right? We can pick and choose from our lives and post stuff. But when you get to see somebody, talk to them in person, it's a whole other thing. So it's a lot of fun. And at a show, you have thousands and thousands of people. You're probably there for a reason, whether you're vending, buying, selling, or just trying to do some networking or whatever. You have an agenda. The idea behind Retic Fest was no agenda, bunch of snakes. You know, whoever wants to come hang can come hang, and it's been a lot of fun. And then we've tried to put a little bit, like we have 2 speakers that I'm very excited about this year. That'll be cool. So they're going to speak live. We'll do like a YouTube live, like a private chat for anybody on our Patreon and stuff like that can chat in and ask them questions. And then we'll release that. They should have really good informational talks. And so we'll release that stuff on YouTube later to just help spread education about these animals that I work with and stuff like that specifically. But I got the whole idea from it from one of the original, I don't know if it was the original Northeast Carpet Fest. And it was just so much fun. And I'm not a carpet python keeper, but it's more of like a backyard barbecue atmosphere than anything else. And those things were always limited. Like I know that Cusco had one, the Southwest Carpet Fest, at his house one time, and I was there for that too. But usually they're limited. Like the really, really big ones were like 80 people or something like that. The cool thing here is that we have an acre, we have 6,500 square feet, we have big reptile rooms and starting this museum thing and all this stuff. So there's plenty of room for everyone to hang out, rain or shine. And so it's a lot less limited. So this year we're expecting maybe around 150 people. We'll see what shows up. Yeah, and there's no agenda. It's not a reptile show. It's not a sale. It isn't anything like that. It's just people, you know, come to hang out all day. We're like 10 a.m. to 10 p.m.-ish, and sometimes it lasts till 2 a.m. or whatever. It's just good times, just hanging out. So,
sweet,
you know,
sweet.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm glad
I'm
you
going
to
go up the day before and hang out with Abby and Jody and them, and then shoot over to your place tomorrow. So, or
about a
Saturday,
half hour
rather.
from here. They said that they're going to have a little barbecue or whatever, their own little hangout. They call it pre-tick fest.
Right.
So, nice. And then I've heard, I can't confirm this because I haven't talked to him lately, but Richard from Tarantula Collective was going to have a post-tick fest because he's about an hour away down in West Virginia. So he was going to have some people over at his place too. So
that's cool.
Nice.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah, Retic Fest. This is up in PA.
Pittsburgh.
So
yeah, this is Pittsburgh. So
yeah, maybe we'll get something similar to it down here in North Carolina if we can keep getting all the reptile people to migrate to North Carolina like they're supposed to.
Seems like it's happening.
Pull all these big shows out of the West Coast and get them over here, then we'll be all right.
Yeah.
I know. I talked
to
to
California where you can't eat carbs and stuff.
I talk to James and Christina all the time, and they're always showing me pictures, and you know, we'll be on video calls, and they're showing me videos of North Carolina, and I'm like, man, that doesn't seem half bad.
Yeah, it's not
you
bad
guys
at
got a
all.
lot of really awesome people out there.
Not bad at
James
all.
brought me a little gift to Retic Fest last year. I got it sitting right here by my desk. So yeah, good times.
Since we're on the topic of reptile laws and stuff, Dan Parker's actually waiting in the wings right here, so I'm going to bring him on really quick. I don't know what his day looks like, but these USARK people tend to stay pretty busy. So,
hello,
there he is.
Hey, Dan.
What's up,
Howdy,
Mr.
howdy.
Parker? How you doing?
how's it going? Yeah, bring Daniel Parker in here to just ruin the fun. Let's just we're having fun, and now let's talk about laws and boring stuff. And
Hey, it really is fun because I mean, pretty much been winning for the most part, so you can't can't complain.
Yeah,
too much
I mean,
about that.
we've had some good things happen recently, that's for sure. So yeah, we're cautiously optimistic here in Florida right now.
Right. We was talking about the memberships and all that stuff with USARK, man. How big, and not to, we've already beat the FWC thing up pretty good, but how big of a bump in memberships did we get after that? For like USARK Florida, it should have been pretty sizable.
I honestly don't know. I don't see, I know we added members for sure, but I don't see all of the membership numbers coming in.
Right.
So I know we added some. I don't think it was a huge financial boon for us or anything.
Right.
Our last auction actually made a little bit less money than the one before that.
Right.
So, we see a lot of enthusiasm and people are saying, oh, we're supporting you and stuff, but it's still a lot of times getting people to actually join or make a donation. It's always a struggle. And
Right.
we have, for the number of reptile people we have in Florida and the amount of support, verbal support people have given, it's still kind of surprising
Right.
what a small percentage of people actually come through with like real tangible support that really helps the organization.
Yeah, that's like Garrett was saying earlier about bad news spreading like wildfire and good news, crawling along. It'd be nice if we could find something on the positive side to the same scale of the FWC thing to build positive.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that's just the world we live in. When something, and we've been struggling for years now with FWC, so that Holy Thursday Massacre event kind of brought the eyes of the world upon it. But here in Florida, it was just like an exemplification, that was all caught on video, obviously, of what we'd already been dealing with FWC rules and law enforcement for years. So it kind of put it on display for the world to see.
Right. I'm gonna put up
even the negative, impact of that happening. I do think had a positive effect as far as like I'd never seen so much empathy for snake keepers from outside the reptile community,
Right.
and so it definitely did do that. I think that the trick, or where people fall shockingly short, is okay, here's this thing, we're all talking about it, we need some change to happen, but what do we actually do from there?
Yeah.
And
you're absolutely right. And maybe I shouldn't have started off, so on such a downer, but actually, what happened with that, all the attention, and then a lot of people showed up to the FWC meeting, and FWC did not implement that whitelist that I truly believe was going to happen at that meeting. They drafted rules just in the hours before the meeting and posted them. And when they post draft rules, that's something that the commission intends on voting on. So we did have some people that were like, oh, see, they weren't going to vote on that anyway. No, they rushed the draft rules right before the meeting with the intent of voting on them. That's what they do when they post draft rules and they present them at a meeting. So it was the number of people that were there, and also just the attention that they'd gotten from the media. They would have looked really bad had they pushed that through. And it was very obvious that they were just shoving this down our throats. So thanks to all the keepers who showed up and participated in all that. And we are calling the whitelist dead now in Florida. At the last FWC tag meeting, they started sort of exploring other ideas, and it was clear that this was just not the direction that they were going to go in. So that, now we don't know exactly what's gonna end up happening. They're talking about some 7-tier regulatory structure. It's actually starting to sound quite complicated, and they're going to rank animals according to how dangerous they are, how invasive they could be. So we still have a lot of concerns. They brought up that the Asian water monitor is unregulated, and Sarah Funk, FWC staff biologist, said she was very concerned about that. That was one of the only animals, I think, herps that was specifically mentioned. So that's really concerning. I mean, we have a lot of people that keep water monitors. They're amazing animals, and I mean, for the future, we have to look at some of these animals. It may be that there's going to be some restriction on them, like caging standards or microchipping requirements or something. But what we don't want to see is another prohibited species. That's just been a terrible, terrible system. And the Holy Thursday Massacre just really put that on full display, how horrible this whole idea was, the prohibited species rules. And it was done without our consent and without our input, and that's part of what our lawsuit's about also. So, you know, we would like to see, going forward, the conditional species program revisited, where people could still keep the animals, but certain animals you do have to abide by, you know, certain caging standards and certain restrictions, just to make sure that we have biosecurity, that they're not getting out. Because, you know, if as long as we have invasive species problems in Florida, which we probably will forever, or at least it's going to be big in the media, they're going to continue to beat us over the head with this.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, Tim, if I could just jump in for a second. Christina,
Yeah.
You highlighted a comment of hers, join USARK Florida, $30 a year, definitely worth it. Here's the thing, Florida regulations setting a precedent for all of us is a huge, huge deal. And that's why you hear so much. I mean, you hear about USARK and USARK Florida. You don't hear too much about, like, you know, USARK North Dakota or something like that. You know what I mean? Not that stuff isn't out there and isn't great. But the fact is that the regulations being set in Florida, which is a tropical paradise, you guys have hundreds of introduced species, not just reptiles, you know, and things like that. So if the laws are written really well, then those things setting a precedent for everyone else can be a good thing. But what happens is when they're written really poorly and then people copy paste them. For example, I don't think there's any established population of Asian water monitor in Florida whatsoever, right, Daniel? So
no, a few have popped up, and that's what they're really concerned about, is that, you know, there is an established population of Nile monitors. It hasn't like exploded or anything. It's been in Lee County, it's been there for years, and they're not that easy to find. They do still pop up occasionally, but because of that, they're looking at all monitor lizards, and that's on a list of species they want to evaluate, is all Varanus. So, you know, when you have a really big animal like a water monitor, that's scary to people. And I love water monitors. I mean, they're such amazing animals, and they're usually so friendly and everything too. So I would hate to see something overly restrictive with them, but that's why we have to be really vigilant continually.
Yeah, and I just want to make the point too, like, I live here in Pennsylvania. There's no way a water monitor is going to survive, but they have been found and do pop up. Like, look at this giant lizard swimming in a river. You know what I mean? Because they either escape or some irresponsible pet keeper releases them or something like that. But I don't think there's any regulation that needs to happen because of those kinds of isolated incidences. But the logic, or the lack of logic, really, that a lot of the legislators are using is, you know, okay, down in Daniel State, you got a couple that pop up, like a couple that pop up here, or like you said, here's a Nile monitor, right? Where there's a few of these down here. So let's go ahead and ban Ackies or something, which are like completely different climates and everything. Then we take those legislations and copy paste them for every state across the United States. And Florida historically has been the inlet of the pet trade from other countries. By and large, like Florida and California, most of the stuff, to a lesser degree, New York, most of that stuff is coming through those states. So that when they're heavily regulated, it affects all of us. And so just for anybody listening, I just wanted to make that point, how important the Florida legislation is, whether or not you live in Florida. And that's why everybody has been giving them so much support and attention, you know?
Yeah, and it's important to point out, too, that USARK Florida is a separate organization from USARK, the national organization. And some people wonder why that is. It's because we had to have our own, or, I mean, you know, Phil Goss is amazing, and he's down here all the time still. It's not like he's abandoned Florida or anything. I mean, we still work very closely with USARK, the national organization, but we have to be vigilant and on this all the time. I mean, there were certain things like last year we had this licensing rule, which makes it so they can basically force you to forfeit your animals if you get a violation. We had an injury rule, which you have to report injuries or bites or escapes to the government. And even if it's a class 3 animal in your own room, it never escapes the room, technically, by the letter of the law. So, you know, there are certain things that, like, USARK National wasn't heavily involved in those, because Phil's just running around everywhere all the time. So us Floridians had to really, but what FWC was doing was they made a concerted effort to just bludgeon us with regulation after regulation after regulation. And the whole point was to reduce the number of license holders that they had. So in Florida, to sell animals or display, you have to have a license. And that's confusing to people in a lot of states. Some states you don't need anything. But not only do we have to have a license, but we have to consent to be inspected. So if you get a license to display reptiles in Florida, even if it's just in your home, let's say you have a pair of leopard geckos and you breed them and you may sell the babies to a pet store or something. You have to have a license for that, and that opens you up to have FWC law enforcement inspect you in your home, and they can show up unannounced at any time. So that's what we deal with here in Florida, and the concern has been that we've seen how they will overreach sometimes. So, you know, we're highly restricted, and more so than any other state in that way, by far.
Yeah. And you know, that's part of the reason why these laws are ridiculous anyways, because they're redundant. You know, like having reticulated pythons, for example, species I work with, on a prohibited species list, right? It doesn't have any established populations in Florida. They're already regulated in Florida. You cannot import them to Florida without a permit, you know, working with the government, all that kind of stuff. And then adding another layer on there is absolutely redundant. It just doesn't make any sense. But people start to copy paste that. That whitelist stuff was scary. You know,
that was just a blanket ban for anything that they said wasn't okay.
Right. Yeah.
I don't understand what his thinking is too, trying to re-implement that on a national level now too. He's seen how sorely that whole topic went over and how it was dealt with, and now they're trying to propose it on the federal level again with Lacey Act and all that stuff. Just makes no sense.
Yeah, I don't think it's about how sorely the public reacts to it. I think it's about the agendas of the people that help with the funding for political campaigns react to it. So if, you know, some land developer in Florida's wife really wants a whitelist, you know, employed, and that guy's company donates tens or hundreds or even millions of dollars to political campaigns, that speaks louder. Which again, is why.
Garrett, that's not just conspiracy theory. That's definitely what happens. So
but it's also why it's so important for USARK members to both USARK Florida and the national level to have as many members, subscribers, supporters, people who follow on Instagram. Like, as a YouTuber, I realize that it's not really about my subscribers that counts to be successful on YouTube, let's say, financially, right? However, the number of people that you have makes people say, wow, you know, if you have 5 million followers on something, you're probably going to be the one that, let's say, a television network looks at if they want to make the next reality reptile TV show, right?
Sure.
And I mean, it's shallow, but it's silly, and it's kind of the way that the world works. So if somebody with a couple hundred or a couple of thousand subscribers, members, or followers comes and says, hey, this is a big deal, nobody's listening. But if somebody has 100, 200,000, maybe 1.5 million followers, you know, then it's a big difference. So I would hope that, you know, like, I mean, we preach it on our channel constantly. You know, we obviously, so through the support of a lot of our like Reach Out Reptiles YouTube followers, actually help fund some of the studio stuff that we use to donate our time and our team to the USARK channel. You know, that's through our followers. I would love to see more and more YouTubers with these large subscription, you know, subscriber rates encourage their guys, hey, if you subscribe to me, also subscribe to USARK. So
yeah, that's great. We certainly appreciate all the ones who've done that.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a I'm gonna put that let's see, for the fundraiser. Where's it at? I've got it on here somewhere. And since I have not yet mastered this particular streaming software, it's going to cover up somebody. But there it is.
Oh, that's all right.
Oh, yeah.
I'll go around. I'll poke my head over here. So, yeah, getting into what you could do to help. Sorry, guys up there. Yep.
Oh, I'm not worried. I'm just trying to read it.
But so on July 29th and 30th, we have an online auction. And this is really cool because we've had people, we have auctions at Tampa Repticon a lot of times, but people from all over the country can't really participate. That's an in-person auction. And then we also will have an auction coming up in Daytona. But this is an opportunity for everybody out there to participate, and people have called for this. So July 29th and 30th, at bsrauctions.com. It's a website that auctions, a lot of reptile people probably already know it, but it's a great auction site, very simple to use, and it's run by one of our board members, but he has graciously volunteered to allow USARK Florida to do a benefit auction for a weekend. So people can donate. If you want to donate animals, if you have healthy animals, you know, something, obviously no prohibited species in Florida, but if there are things you'd like to donate, there's an email address on there. Tim, we might want to get that up again real quick, but it's info@bsrauctions.com if you want to donate animals. And also just, you know, get in there and participate. Right, you can register on that bsrauctions.com site. They have an auction going on like right now that's not our auction, but you can kind of see how the site works. But we're hoping to have some really cool donations. We already had a baby Galapagos tortoise donated, which is really cool, and we just kind of announced this yesterday. So, but definitely share to everybody, and it's posted all over our social media platforms, and we'll have a video coming out on YouTube very soon about this also. But please, and the reason it's rock and roll themed, I guess, Tim, you can take that away. We had
I'll put all that stuff in the description too. So
yeah, there's a cool item that's been donated. So this was actually auctioned at the Daytona auction last year. And it's a custom guitar, and it's got signatures from a whole list of guys here. I'll read them. It's got Brian Barczyk signed this, Kevin McCurley, Ty Park, Greg Graziani, Eugene Bissett, Mark and Kim Bell, Ralph Davis, Vin Russo, Tom Crutchfield, Brian Gundy, Craig Trumbauer, the Sutherlands. But it's kind of a piece of herp history in that way. It's got a lot of well-known herp people. And we've actually been using it to record some. I just picked it up. So Eugene Bissett, one of our USARK Florida board members, bid on this and got it, even at the auction at Daytona last year, but he's decided to donate it back. So it's kind of continuing to cycle here. And I picked up the guitar from him, and we've been recording some music. I'm a musician, and we just recorded some new theme music. for USARK Florida for our news videos and stuff. That's going to be original music by me, but we use this guitar to record some of the music too, and it sounds pretty good. So this is another thing that'll be up for auction on the as part of that online auction.
You guys need to get Jeremy Turgeon in there too.
Yeah. We've been talking about it. Yeah, I was in touch with him yesterday, getting his comments on the music. So yeah, Jeremy and I talk about music all the time.
I'd be really curious to see how Jeremy's jazz and Kevin's metal would mesh.
That's kind of where I come in. Actually, I kind of bring that all together with all different styles and classical, and I've played just about everything over the years. So nice. Yeah. But Jeremy, we've kind of jammed online before, but we have to actually get together in person and jam sometime.
Right.
I actually talked to Jeremy about the same thing because I've played music my whole life, and I played pretty heavy music, and I was like, it'd be kind of funny to have the contrast of like really heavy metal with trumpet, Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, it all works. Speaking of Tim, are you able to pull up the quick video?
I'm not sure. I've been multitasking.
Okay, well it's no big deal if you can't, but I was just gonna
see if I can.
The reason I'm here where I'm at now, we're kind of in a home studio here where we do a lot of our USARK Florida video work, but also music stuff. And we just recorded a new USARK Florida theme, and it kind of goes from like traditional sounding news music to like almost heavy metal at the end. So the whole thing grows over the course of 30 seconds. So it's going to be in our next news video coming out this week. So we've just started a new news format. So if you don't follow USARK Florida on YouTube, we definitely invite you to do that. It's interesting how you see that a lot more people watch your videos sometimes than actually subscribe to your channel,
right?
Or like. But we've gotten a lot of views on some contentious topics recently. But we'd love for everybody to actually go there and subscribe, so you'll always see when we post our stuff. But we got a lot of good comments on our news video format, the new thing that we're doing.
Cool.
You guys have all kinds of fun reptile shorts and everything on there too, like little herping adventures and things like that.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point. I mean, I'm a big field herper myself, obviously, but sometimes people ask, why do you post so many things about wild reptiles? We've even taken a little bit of crap about that sometimes on our social media. But, we try to post stories that just reptile people would be interested in. We're not like narrowly focused on just laws and, obviously USARK Florida is involved with that, but we don't put any restrictions on stuff that we post on our social media. If we think it might be interesting to people out there and it's a reptile story, then, we might post it. So
I think that's the kind of stuff that, excuse me, I think that's the kind of stuff that will pull people who aren't necessarily like as into the reptile community, like that. You show herping trips and cool little animal things, and I feel like that's going to reach people that are outside of, just that general scope of people who's watching USARK stuff, and that's important. So,
yeah, and one of the things that I thought was really important when I came in, started working for USARK Florida, is that we start to. I mean, we're never going to control the narrative, but we have our input in the media narrative all the time. So, reptiles are constantly just barraged with negative stuff in the media all the time. Snakes have, and it's really sad to see. Like, I felt like in the 90s, snakes really had a good PR period there with the Crocodile Hunter and all the other kind of reptile wrangler TV guys. And, people started to look at snakes more favorably. And then with this Burmese python thing in Florida, I mean, I think it's just changed the way a lot of people view snakes around the world. I mean, you'll hear Burmese pythons in Florida mentioned in movies. And I mean, it was even in the Netflix show Ozark. They kept talking about invasive species and pythons in Florida and stuff. And it's just pervasive in the media. So we need to be getting our own information out there. That's not always so negatively slanted. I mean, we want to be reporting the truth. We're not going to make up stuff. We don't deny that there are issues with non-native species, but you know, reptiles need some good PR out there too, because all they're getting anymore, it seems like, is just hit negatively all the time. And you'll see like Newsweek, huge publication. I mean, they covered the Holy Thursday Massacre, which was, you know, it brought a lot of attention to the story, but they publish snake stories like almost every day, it seems like. And, you know, it'll be out of Australia. Somebody finds a carpet python in their toilet, but it's always something scary and sensationalistic. And, you know, it just continues to kind of beat snakes over the head and scare people with them. So, you know, there's got to be somebody speaking up for the snakes and saying the positive stuff out there.
Yeah.
I think the stuff that gets the most attention is all of the sensationalized crap. That's how I feel about it. And it's a shame because a lot of the best, you know, the people who are putting out what I think is like the most educational and positive content are the people who don't have nearly as many people following and seeing what they're doing. And they should, because those are the ones that have the best impact. But, you know, giant snake trying to bite you is the stuff that gets attention. And I honestly think, and I say this all the time, I think that some of this fault falls on us as a community for posting things that we shouldn't be posting. And I'm not saying everybody, because not everybody does it, but unfortunately there's plenty of people who care more about views and likes and stuff than they care about the longevity of our community and our hobby. So they show animals in a way that, you know, as reptile keepers, we understand that some of this stuff is just part of the game. But
yeah, I mean, unfortunately, you know, that's one of those things, you know, I don't know if that's ever going to change. I talked to a TV producer who'd worked on a lot of snake shows, and he talked about how, you know, it used to be on TV, they were still limited by what the legal department would allow to be shown on TV. So even though these TV snake guys were doing some pretty crazy stuff, there was a limit. Whereas now on YouTube, nobody, you know, most of these guys don't have a legal team saying, no, you just can't put this out publicly. So they can really go beyond extreme and just to get views. But I don't know how that changes, because it seems like even if a certain generation of YouTubers decide to not go that route, somebody's going to come in to kind of fill that void, because it gets views, obviously.
Right.
Yeah, and they based a lot of their sort of, to get to where they are, they've based their content and their channel around a lot of that. There's plenty of people who have done it, and they're getting paid to do it. And they're not going to not get paid, you know, because everyone wants money. So it's like they do what they do to get to where they are, and then they keep doing it because they're getting paid to do it. They don't care. You're never going to convince people. Like, you can reach some people, you can convince some people, hey, maybe this isn't the best idea, maybe I should change what I'm doing. But a lot of them don't really care, you know. They're going to keep doing their thing because that's what the whole bigger picture is based off for them, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think it's more important then for those of you who want to portray reptiles in a positive light and not be sensational, get your stuff out there and figure out how to make good, positive content. People make fun of me sometimes in like these herping videos because I kind of baby talk the animals. And I kind of got that from, I had a boss at University of Central Florida when I was doing we were doing snake research, and we went out into the field one day, and it was my first day in the field with him, and he was just such a super easygoing guy. And we went out on this bridge over a swamp, I think, and there was a cottonmouth just floating on the water, and he goes, "Oh, we got a snakey." we got a little cottonmouth, you know, like he started talking like that. Hey, little snaky. And I kind of started like doing an impression of him, just kind of gently making fun of him. I love the guy, but you know, everybody does impressions of people around them. But I kind of like, it became part of how I talk to snakes too now. But I think it's important to just show that these are just animals. They're not supernatural creatures. Even a Burmese python or a reticulated python, they're just another animal. They're trying to make it in the world. They're trying to eat and reproduce and survive just like anything else. And they're not supernatural. They're just animals, even though they get a little bit bigger. So I think that we should treat them like they're just another animal. And so, you know, I'll talk to a rattlesnake. I'll do baby talk to a rattlesnake, but that's coming through honestly, because I'm just not seeing that as a scary. It's a dangerous animal. You got to be careful, but you know, it would be dishonest for me to be like, oh my gosh, we have a rattlesnake. This is the most dangerous thing ever. You know, that's just not really my style.
Yeah, I compare it a lot of times to electricity. You know, we've all got electricity in our house. It can kill all of us. But there's still people that can get into the fuse box and fix things and all that stuff without dying. But, you know, if you do something like sticking your tongue in the 220 or something, you're probably going to have a bad day. Same thing as going up and trying to kiss a rattlesnake or something. So it's just the application of common sense and stuff. But it's
absolutely.
Really, as a communicator, you know, one of the things that you see, this is my potentially controversial opinion, right? But even if you look at the crocodile hunter, he was extremely sensational about everything. You talk to anybody in Australia when he was alive, and they're like, oh my gosh, that guy's so embarrassing. Nobody acts like that. You know what I mean? But he had this awesome combination of exactly what you were saying, Daniel, where he's like, oh my gosh, you're a naughty little boy, you know what I mean? And I love you more than I love my own wife, you know? And everyone's just thinking, this guy's crazy. But he's talking to these animals like he's madly in love with them. And then through the editors, they'd show like that crocodile's beautiful green eyes or, you know, whatever it is. And so I think that there's a funnel. If we want to normalize reptiles among animals, right? Like nobody goes and sees a little chipmunk outside and then like goes after it with a pitchfork or, you know, tries to chop its head off with a shovel just because it exists in their backyard, you know? Maybe if it's digging up their driveway. But if it's just out there, like people leave these things alone, but you see a snake and they go after it. So I think the goal would be to normalize it, that these are just animals like other animals. They're not evil, you know. If you go pick up wild animals, it's probably going to bite the dickens out of you. You should have seen this baby raccoon that I picked up. I shouldn't say that, it's probably illegal or whatever, but the mom got ran over. And so I grabbed these babies and put them in a thing, and they're trying to tear me a new one, you know, worse than any snake I'd ever picked up. But they're so cute and they're so lovable, and people don't have that perspective. So the thing about communication, and I'll just say this, especially in light of some of you guys starting new channels and Daniel, you know, you guys being on YouTube and everything like that. But if you want somebody to watch your content, you got to meet them where they're at. So a lot of times these content creators that are putting out really positive messages, they're putting out something to somewhere that, like, we're only meeting people where they're already at. So if I want to say something reptile specific, like super dwarf retics are the best pet in the world, you know, most people never even heard of a super dwarf. They don't know what they're talking about. And everyone's saying, yay, yes, I agree with you, are people that already think like I do. Right? So there's like a funnel of communication. If most of the world is here and they think snakes are scary, evil, and always biting them, then I think that there is validity to meeting their expectations in the beginning, teaching them through the course of the content, whether it's 10-second short form content or a whole hour-long documentary, to where the end you have to very specifically give a call to action. And people are successful doing this, whether they realize it a lot or not. But if you're not intentional about what your call to action is, what happens is a lot of the reptile community has a very negative call to action at the end of their thing. And it's usually just driven by us all being nerds and loving the stuff that we talk about and things like that. But if it comes off condemning of other people or of animals in the community, we're going to tear ourselves apart. What the crocodile hunter would do is meet people. You think about it, people would tune in and be like, this guy's going to get eaten by a crocodile. So he starts these episodes out going, here's me almost being eaten by a crocodile. And he never says, now crocodiles aren't really dangerous and we should all love them, because I've seen people go that way too. You know what I mean? He would say things like, oh, I prefer crocodiles over people. You guys have probably all heard this one, right? The crocodile, he just wants to kill you. People sometimes try to pretend to be nice first, right? So he's calling it like it is. It's a crocodile and it probably wants to kill me. And he's representing it in front of everyone. But then he's saying, this is what a crocodile is supposed to be. They're an important part of the environment, and I love them. What a majestic creature. What an honor it is to live and act and share our space and our lives with something as crazy as a giant crocodile or a venomous snake, or in many cases on social media, just like a harmless ball python. But what an honor that animal is tolerating us and allowing us to kind of connect with it in that way that people don't see. So you have to start here and meet them where they're at, which is sometimes, like I said, I'm almost getting eaten by a crocodile. But his call to action in the end was always, and this is why people love Steve Irwin, was always like conservation and helping these animals and rescuing them and changing the undeserved bias that they're evil just because they're potentially dangerous to humans. We don't need to go out there and destroy everything that's potentially dangerous to us, or we'd be shutting off the electricity in our house, right, Tim? So, the thing is, how do we learn to live with it and have a benefited life because of it? And so I personally, the controversial hot take is like, if you are sensationalizing something to meet people where they're at and bringing them to a positive call to action, I think that that's a great thing. It's sometimes the thing that has the most impact as a communicator in the industry. But if you're meeting them where they're at and then you're sensationalizing it further, like it would be very distasteful if we all saw a video of someone with their ball python. They go, oh my gosh, whoa, it's such a danger. This is a python and they can crush and kill things. This is probably trying to eat my dog. Now you're meeting a larger audience where they're at, thinking that the snake is scary, and you're sensationalizing a ball python or something less harmless that into something that it's not, and you're adding to the misconceptions. It's better to call it like it is, make sure that people understand that this thing is dangerous, or even just scary. I mean, one of my daughters has a quote. I quote my kids more than I quote philosophers and stuff in life. It's funny being a dad. I love it. But one of my daughters says, Dad, there's dangerous and there's scary. And did you know some people, even grown-ups, don't know the difference? Like, this thing is scary, yes, but it's not dangerous at all. And sometimes accurate. Things that are dangerous are not scary at all because we're familiar with it. So I think the point is familiarize people with things so that it's not scary anymore, and they won't be so negatively tuned to it. So from an education and 100%. Communication standpoint, sometimes it's good to just call the things like they are, but then help people understand the benefit of them.
Yeah, that's the tough part about making videos about mainland retics, because they're so polarizing, man. Mine are both about 16 feet, the easiest animals in the world to work with. But somebody else with different animals under different circumstances are going to have serious problems with these animals. So it's like, how do you walk that line right there between telling people how easy they are and how hard they are, and finding that middle ground,
Yeah, I thought Garrett said something a little while back there too that I really identified with. You talked about it's an honor to. I've always felt like that. That's something I think as a field herper, but even as a keeper, like everybody should try to remember the wonder when they first got into this. Like, what drew you to a snake or any other reptile? I remember the first time I saw an American croc in the wild in Florida. It was like this massive 14-footer.
And
super
jealous.
It was like right under me on a catwalk, and it was just like, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it right now. But it was just like this sense of awe and wonder, but also like an honor. Like, it's an honor to meet you. And I feel like as herpers, we're a little bit like celebrity chasers. Like, sometimes we read about these animals in books, or we saw their pictures in books growing up, or we saw them on TV. But like, when you get to see them in person, it's just like how people go nuts when they meet a celebrity or something. I think that's what a lot of herpers are chasing. And, I think that's something that we should all put on display too, is the honor of just being allowed to be around these animals.
Right.
And we should treat the animals like that. We should treat them respectfully.
I mean, where else? I mean, it's the coolest thing, man, to be able to. It's so important to be able to keep up with that, because I've got, animals down in my reptile room that you would never see within the borders of this country. People that don't get an opportunity to travel abroad and things like that. It's just cool to be able to invite your neighbors over and say, hey, this is from Indonesia. This is from Africa, and they all live right here, and they're safe. We get along and all that stuff. So it's cool, because it seems like since I've kind of gotten into the community over the last couple of years, it seems like it's gotten a lot better. When I first came in, I know I took a lot of heat for coming down on people for doing like live feeding videos and stuff like that, and really grisly stuff. But stuff like that seems to, people seem to be coming around a little bit since then and trying to keep things in a positive light.
I think too that, we focus a little bit on like the bad of YouTubers and social media people that sensationalize. But I look at some of the excellent keepers on YouTube that have beautiful displays and obviously care for their animals really well. I think that that's pushed us in a really positive direction. Mm-hmm. Because it's not just about the number of animals that you have. You're putting them on display and you're showing them to the world. It's also just about taking that individual animal and putting it in a beautiful enclosure and showing everybody just what an amazing experience this can be. And I think that husbandry is definitely improving because of it. Mm-hmm. I think that in the past, maybe your measure as a herpetoculturist might just be how many animals you have, or how many you could produce, how many eggs could you hatch, or even how many could you sell. But right. It's really cool to see some of the social media influencers that have this certain, maybe smallish number of animals, but just keep them in a really beautiful way. And I think that a lot of people are now imitating that, which is a great mm-hmm. thing.
Yeah, I'm going to start imitating it myself, because I've got a super dwarf coming pretty soon. So right behind me here somewhere, I'm going to try and put together a really nice big arboreal enclosure for him and stuff like that. Have that as awesome. A backdrop. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that project. I'll probably make some videos of that.
Yeah, that'll be sweet.
Yep. So Russ took off.
I'm right here.
Or I'm sorry, not Russ. Chad.
Yeah, so Russ, can I ask you what's the goal with your new endeavors?
With my new endeavors?
Yeah.
As far as my animals or YouTube?
The YouTube stuff, like what you're getting into and everything like that.
Oh,
since we're talking about outreach, education, all that.
Yeah, I think mine and Chad's main goal is to bring more education into it. We try to talk to people and keep things positive, promote the right side of it. I personally, eventually, if I ever do produce babies, I will have at least one rack. But I keep everything in enclosures. And I know me and Chad both want to keep going bigger and bigger. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. And kind of to your point, Tim, getting a super dwarf in there, and your point, Daniel, about how stuff is changing. It's been kind of cool to see people there's two ways to give an animal more space, right? One is to go bigger and bigger enclosure, and one is to go smaller and smaller animal.
Mhm.
So it's kind of cool to see all these new popular animals popping up that are like, like anoles or micro geckos or, stuff like that, that they're, people are having a lot of fun with these little teeny tiny things.
Right.
Even me, I'm enthralled with my little African house snakes. You know what I mean? Some of them are like as big as my pinky or whatever. But it's really cool when you can appreciate the animal for its value as a life form versus saying this is the biggest and the baddest that you
Mhm.
can get. And I think that the as more people get into the hobby, the more it trends that way. If you think back in the reptile industry, it was very much like it was either like a alternative culture thing, and there was a few weirdos out there that weren't trying to be big hard guys or whatever that really love the industry, and they're the ones that really popularized it. Some of these guys that started breeding, and a lot of the original herpers and like the colubrid breeders and stuff back in the 80s and all those.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been cool to see it as it opens up to more people. It's like, well, I don't care to have the biggest, baddest, whatever. I'm just in love with this animal for what it is, and the more that people do that, and it's if it happens to be a big animal, great, as long as you can provide for it. But the general masses falling in love with tiny animals in elaborate enclosures is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eugene Bassett calls that bonsai, like bonsai
Yeah.
culture or something, spreading to herps. I think that's a good way to describe it. Yeah, I think it's been just a hugely positive development.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm hoping to work this one up. This should be a pretty cool enclosure.
Yeah.
Just to touch on what Russ was saying, this whole thing started with me and him talk on the phone every day, right? And friends of ours were like, well, why don't you just go on Instagram, go live and talk about it, and have other friends on and meet other people. And we did it. We enjoyed it. I never thought I would turn a camera on and sit in front of it because I'm not really like that kind of a social person. I'm becoming that. I'm sort of like more comfortable doing it. I enjoy it a lot. And I'm not chasing like, okay, who's popular right now? Let me talk to this person. I like to talk to the people who I have a lot of respect for, who I learn things from, who I look at from afar, and I'm like, okay, they're doing something that I would like to learn and I would like to emulate. And it sort of went from there. But I was born in 91, and in the 90s, I had all kinds of cool stuff, all kinds of animals. I got out of it for many years. And I went to a local expo a couple days before my birthday 2 years ago, held a retic for the first time. And I knew what they were. I would say quite a bit about them. And I held a retic for the first time, and I was like, oh, I'm going home with it. And I did. And for me, it was just the joy that I got from interacting with an animal. That's been what drives me in this. And then I have like an addictive personality, right? So I'm like, I want more animals. So I start buying more animals. And then I realized that I'm almost chasing someone else's dream, that I don't need to breed animals, because I know tons of awesome people who do that, and I can get animals from them. I don't have to do that myself. And I think the joy I get is interacting with my animals, learning from them, watching their behaviors, seeing how they react to certain things. So I've shifted my goals or my plans or where I'm trying to get myself to more of like an educational type thing, and rather than continuing to get more and more animals, I've kind of decided to downsize a little, and it's more a thing where I have close friends who I trust very much, and I'm willing to let a couple animals go to them. And in doing that, I can have those much larger enclosures. That was my original goal, was, okay, what do people normally keep this in? I'm going to go bigger than that. And then it goes to, well, I could probably go bigger than that, and I can set it up even cooler. And I can, watch large snakes climb, to the ceiling in my room in an enclosure or something. And that's the thing I enjoy the most, is just being around the animals. I don't know where my life would be if I didn't have them. So I'm decided to make some changes so I can kind of follow what my original goals were.
Yeah, people need to see a lot more of that. I know I had to slim down my collection because it's so easy, especially when you're first getting started. I want one of these. I want one of these. I want two of these. And before you know it, you're like, oh my God. You know?
Yeah, and people make it so
like,
easy too. There's so many easy ways to pay somebody, and people will be like, "Oh, I'll just send you the animal. Just pay me later." And and they make it way too easy. So
yeah, I slimmed down a couple years ago.
Chad, you probably know musicians are the same way. That's how, like, someone ends up with a rack of guitars behind them that looks like that. It all works the same way, no matter what hobby you're in.
Once I went from playing expensive guitars, a couple $1,000 guitars that you could buy at a store, to having custom guitars made and spending even more money. I started to see that. I got out of music and I was like, okay, now I'm not going to blow thousands of dollars on things. I decided to get into reptiles and I'm like, oh, this is the same thing. I'm buying custom guitars. They just move around and, so it's definitely a thing.
Yeah,
so I know
nobody
Mr. Phil
needs that many guitars, but people do need this guitar that will be auctioned to benefit USARK Florida, coming up on bsrauctions.com on July 29th and 30th.
You need it whether you need it or not. So hey, let me bring Phil in. I know he's a busy guy. I don't want to keep him too long. But Mr. Phil Goss just showed up. How you doing?
Oh, the man!
Hey, Phil.
Right?
Hey, everybody.
Hold on,
Thanks for having me.
I gotta go get my Phil Goss candle. I'll be right back. Go ahead.
Yeah.
This is the point where everybody's got to hold up a cigarette lighter, brother.
Oh, I can do that. I got you.
Oh, come on now. I want to leave. I want to leave with a quickness if the silliness is going on.
Is that Eddie Munster?
That's the man, the myth, the legend right there. What's going on, Phil?
I'm all right. For some reason, I can't see Garrett, so that's possibly a good thing. Oh, no, there he is. So what's going on, fellas? I guess I missed the guitar talk. I could have added so much to that because I know absolutely nothing about guitars.
Right.
There you go.
You and me both.
Yeah, same here. There's no instrument in the world anybody here ever wants to listen to me play.
Yeah, I could maybe break some, but it's not going to sound good.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I thought this was since we was going to be having so many folks on talking today, man, I thought it would be a really good time to talk about some of the Lasiac stuff and what kind of timelines we're looking at mainly, and just to get some information. I'll put all this stuff down in the description and keep pushing it about what kind of timelines we're looking on that and what exactly we need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people are probably wondering why we're not being as vocal about it this year as we were last year, and it's really a different kind of animal, and obviously I'll explain that. So last year what happened was some House representatives snuck that into the almost 3,000 page Competes Act, and it really was not germane to what that bill was about, but we started pushing it so heavy last year because that was going to pass the House in about a week, and obviously that's a big part of a bill passing. Bills have to pass both chambers, so obviously it passed the House and it was going to the Senate. But that was a big deal, and we only had about a week. So we had to start, ASAP, getting everybody round up. So it wasn't just the reptile people, it was the fish people, the bird people, the mammal people. It was everybody because it was a big deal. The aquaculture industry estimated it would have been $500 million, so $500 million impact to the aquaculture industry the first year if that would have passed. So obviously they were big and heavy on it too and bringing in a lot of opposition. But anyway, that was why it was so much pressure last year to have as many people contact their legislators, quickly and stay on it. This year is a little bit different. So actually, a lot of people didn't realize Rubio, the same senator who introduced it this year, introduced it back in 2021, and USARK had an alert out, but we weren't super vocal about it because, again, it was a bill that was introduced, but there wasn't a lot of support for it, and it wasn't having hearings, and it wasn't that big a deal. But then in 2022, when the same language got added to the Competes Act, that's when it was a major deal because it was passing the House in about a week. So we have kind of the same thing this year. So it's been introduced by Senator Rubio again. Senate Bill 1614. And right now,
our Florida senator,
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry, everybody.
The Florida federal senator. So a lot of people even get that confused. You have
We're trying to work with you guys, but
federal
man, you're making it tough sometimes.
Rubio's one of the 2 Florida federal senators. So he's introduced it again, but this year it does not have even a co-sponsor. So when he introduced it in 21, it had a co-sponsor, Schatz, out of Florida or Hawaii. It doesn't have any co-sponsors. Again, we don't think it's a priority for Rubio's office. So right now we're just pushing Florida residents to contact Rubio. I know USARK Florida shared the Don't Blacklist Pets website, which is super easy. It takes you, 15 seconds to fill out the information and send off an email that goes just to Rubio's office. So right now, we're just having Florida people do it. But what we're hoping carries over from last year when so many people opposed it. We're hoping that doesn't get included into another big, omnibus or possibly the farm bill. That's really what we're concerned about. So obviously USARK is monitoring it. If this gets slipped into something like a farm bill, that's when we're going to need all hands on deck. So right now, if you're in Florida, please, USARK's going to be sharing it soon. Right now, USARK Florida has shared it. But again, that don'tblacklistpets.org is the website. Makes it super easy for you. Or you can go the extra steps. We have it on the USARK website. Go the extra steps and send an email from your account to Senator Rubio's office. But again, right now, we kind of just have Florida kind of focusing on it. And if it gets into a act now status for everybody, obviously we'll be making that known. Mm-hmm. So if there's any questions on that, let me know. I know that was a lot of spewing right there, but
hey, I'm the spewer.
Yeah, Daniel's the one that had to come in and kill the mood. We was all laughing and joking, and then he's like, "Man,
damn it,
Florida."
Damn it, Daniel. So now you're like, hey, everybody's having a good time. Let's bring Phil on.
Yeah, we started having fun again. Let's bring Phil back in there. Yeah. I just wanted to
I tried not to kill the party. I did.
Brought in the guitar. I just wanted to throw in there, if anyone wants to follow along, as USARK dictates kind of what we need to be doing to stay on top of this stuff, that I saw that Christina, thank you, Christina, put a link to USARK YouTube official on there. I mean, we have a lot of people share on that channel and stuff, kind of show that side of the industry. And like I said, trying to bring people's subscribers over the channel. But the thing is to be subscribed to that channel and make sure you get notifications so that if we ever do put out an alert, it's like, hey guys, something's happening right now. Let's get on it. And just like you were talking about earlier, Daniel, sometimes it's like short period of time where we have an opportunity to act. And so that's kind of the main goal, I would say, from my perspective, of that USARK YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell, because when you get the alerts and it's like, hey, we need help, we'll do this now, it's probably very shortly going to have stuff to do with these, like we did the Competes Act last year, like Phil was talking about, and Lacey Act changes as they come down the pike and do become important.
So fortunately for herpetoculture, and unfortunately for me, it took us almost 10 years since I became president for us to finally get a USARK YouTube channel. The reason for that is because I am not a content creator. That's not what I like to do. But then Garrett showed up and said, hey, let me get this thing rolling for you. So, thanks to Garrett and Thomas, they're the ones. Thomas is doing the editing. Garrett's getting on there and doing his newscaster voice and persona.
Just a goof with the truth.
So thanks to Garrett and Thomas, we do finally have a YouTube channel. So when I'm absolutely forced to, I do get on there and make a video. And then Thomas edits it and makes it look presentable. So again, definitely check out our YouTube channel. It's got over 10,000 subscribers, and I don't think we're even a year old yet. So it's definitely growing and important to watch. So thanks to everybody for doing that.
Absolutely.
And I think for me, it's like, obviously USARK and USARK Florida do a ton for us, so we need to support them. And then you also have Garrett and Thomas investing their time and their effort into trying to push that. And then another step of that is that you have a bunch of other people in the community going on and doing the same. I think that this being a community effort is awesome. I love seeing people kind of band together, work together, and it should have many, many more subscribers. So we should make that happen. Mm-hmm. We need to support the people who support us, so do that. If you're not already subscribed, if you're not following that stuff, both USARK and USARK Florida, It's free to do it. It doesn't cost you anything. It'll take you 5 seconds to go over there and
Right.
you know, subscribe, hit that notification. And those numbers matter, you know, just like the numbers for people who are members, those things matter to be able to show people, hey, we are legitimate. We're a bunch of people who have a common interest and a common goal. It's a lot easier when those numbers are bigger. You know, I think people pay more attention to that. Legislators and such, so
if you compare, I mean, it's great. USARK, the YouTube channel, you know, over 10,000 subscribers now. I think USARK Florida is somewhere around like 2,600. But compared to the number of reptile keepers out there,
That's insane.
We should have a lot more. And if you just go on PETA's social media and look at how many subscribers they have. They made a post about ball pythons, like, you know, they had a picture from a reptile show of like morph ball pythons in a display case. And they said, these snakes should be in the wild. You know, these snakes are being treated cruelly and these snakes belong in the wild. Well, obviously they're not wild animals, they're domestic animals. But that post, I mean, it got like 500,000 likes on the first day. So that's the people who are up against us. That's the kind of reach they have. And, you know, they are donating millions of dollars to politicians and lobbyists, and they have huge social media outreach. So it always feels kind of like a David and Goliath situation. USARK has done such an incredible job over the years, given the resources that they have. I mean, so many wins. It's really incredible if you think about it. When you're going up against organizations like PETA and Humane Society of the United States and Center for Biological Diversity, and just these huge money, they pull in hundreds of millions of dollars per year in revenue. And that's what we're up against. And us with our, you know, 10,000 subscribers for USARK and you know, whatever, I don't know exactly what the revenue or the money coming in, but it's nothing anywhere close to any of those organizations. So, you know, we're all putting up the fight here best we can.
Yeah, Daniel, great points. And so people know, I see a lot on, especially on the USARK Facebook. I think we're about 100,000. I'll get back to that number in a second. But, you know, a lot of times people post, everybody knows that PETA is bad. Everybody does not know PETA is bad. We just got a proposal amended in Austin, Texas, and PETA was the one who was leading the charge on it. And PETA was steering it would have banned educational programs. And we got that amended. But again, PETA was in there feeding all this stuff to the Austin City Council, and you know, they were soaking it up because everybody does not know about PETA. Just because you're a reptile person, you know about PETA. There's still somebody else giving over $50 million a year to PETA. So there are plenty of people who either support the right agenda or they don't know what PETA is all about. And back to that 125,000 followers on the USARK Facebook, the Humane Society of the United States, which is probably enemy number one for reptile keepers, has 2.5 million followers on Facebook. USARK in 2021 didn't even bring in $500,000. Right now, from their own 990s, which is public record, the Humane Society of the United States has $500 million just in the bank, and they bring in over $200 million a year in revenue. So when Daniel said David and Goliath, he was not joking at all, and that's just two of the groups.
Yeah. I think I saw 260 or 270 million in revenue, because I went through the organizations the other day and was looking at all that for Humane Society of the United States.
Man.
So,
it's insane.
I mean, they just have money to burn.
Yeah. And
legal battles.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good.
I was going to say these legal battles cost a lot of money, right? And USARK and USARK Florida are running off of memberships, donations, things like that. It's very safe to assume. I'm just going to go ahead and say this is probably a fact, that the people who are working with USARK and USARK Florida, they're putting their own money into this also, right? None of I don't. I'm sure nobody here in this has $1 million that they can just give to USARK and USARK Florida, right? Where none of us are millionaires. So the amount of money that goes into fighting this stuff is probably shocking. I think I would be very surprised to hear how much actually goes into this, and we might not be able to pay every cent of every battle that has to be fought, but we can do more, right? We can all do more. And I think I know some people who breed animals, and I've talked to them, and they've said, well, when we sell an animal, we'll give a membership, or we'll give part of that to a donation. And I can't say if that's actually happening 100% of the time, even if they're saying it, but we can all do something. $1 helps. Buy something at a show. If you're at a show, buy a shirt. I got a shirt for free at the show for volunteering, and then I bought another one because, why not?
I think one of the best things we can do. One of the best things we can do is just really push hard on the public events, public education stuff, and keeping everything positive. That's one of the things that's been hard over the last few months, man. Is there's, I was looking back at the videos that I've done, and it's all been negative. Stuff happened in FWC, and it's always addressing something negative, and it's like, we're not going to attract people to our lifestyle, to our hobby, to our businesses and stuff like that if they see so much negativity and stuff like that. It's just really important to keep everything positive and just try and, find those groups of people that really enjoy introducing people to the animals, getting them together and going out. Don't be afraid to go into a city council meeting or something and say, hey, what can we do? Make friends with people.
Yeah. Or get out there and work with your local FWC.
Yep.
One more thing to kind of end this, and maybe we can get on something a little more entertaining. and this happened just last year. So as Daniel pointed out, so USARK, even as a small organization, we stopped 95% of the stuff that we go up against, which is, I think, pretty crazy for a group of our size. Unfortunately, people, they remember when we lose stuff, but they don't realize all the stuff that we stop. But none of the state bills that we had alerts out on this year passed. So again, we stopped the majority of things. But anyway, even last year, this happened in Georgia, and I was talking to some of the guys affected, and they said, I didn't even send in an email. And these were people who were affected themselves. And
that's Thomas's job right there. You guys have no idea how much Phil goes through stuff.
I didn't realize the importance of sending an email, but that is so important, because when we're a small group like this, that's what gets our foot in the door so that legislators listen to us. So whether it's USARK or USARK Florida, on a state issue, when only 4 dozen people bother to even take a minute to send an email, that doesn't get it done. That we make it so easy. It takes less than a minute to do. So, when we don't have at least 500 or 1,000 people on a state issue, legislators aren't going to believe us when we say that, 5% of American households have a pet reptile. Why should they believe us when I'm coming in from outside of the state to try and change something within that state, and those people haven't even heard from people within the state? So again, that is our foot in the door, and that's why USARK makes it so easy to send those emails. And again, it takes you 30 seconds to a minute, but we have to get those numbers up so that the legislators want to listen to us. And that's, again, it's a combined effort. So it's the grassroots, what we call grassroots, all the people out there, and then USARK coming in and writing the great comment letters and giving the testimony, that puts the nail in the coffin, either get something a minute or stopped.
Right.
And one thing you said, Phil, in the interview that we did recently, we'll be talking about that in our news video that's coming out next week. But one of the legislators' offices you visited in Washington, D.C., they remembered the Lacey Act from last year, and they remembered all the emails they got about it. So that was in their memory, right?
Yeah, and that's huge. When we make that much of an impact that they remember something the next year, that's what stops something like Rubio's bill getting added to the Farm Bill this year or this session of Congress. It's when so many people send in emails or make phone calls or actually go and visit legislators in person. When they remember that for years afterwards, that's when a legislator says, I am not touching this thing. Get it out of my office. I don't want to see it. I don't want to go through what we went through again last year, 5 years ago. And that's how we stop it from, getting added like it did to the Competes Act.
And it had an impact, for instance, it was interesting to see with the FWC whitelist, And like the Holy Thursday massacre, some people would think that what certain actions they took didn't matter. Like they called the governor's office after the FWC massacre happened. We know that the governor's office was barraged with calls, and yeah, the governor didn't specifically acknowledge it, but we also know that the governor's office was in touch with FWC about it. It was not a good look, and they weren't happy about it, and that's part of what helped us stop the whitelist. I mean, if that meeting with those draft rules implementing the Florida whitelist would not have been well attended, let's say just 10 of the same usual reptile people showed up that show up to almost every FWC meeting, and there wasn't this huge pressure on the governor and everybody else, we might have had a very different outcome. It did not. People think just because Chairman Barreto of FWC said at the beginning of that discussion, just to let you know, we're not actually going to vote on this today, we're going to give it more time. There was a reason for that. He didn't just come up with that on the spot. Yeah. There was a lot of pressure happening there, and it was all because of phone calls, it was because of emails, and it was because of the massive, the amount of people that were there at the meeting. They didn't want to go through 100 passionate speakers speaking against them, so they kind of headed that off before the discussion even began on that one.
100%.
That was really impressive to see. It was the coolest thing to see him drop that thing like it was on fire. Loved it.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, and then I was so happy too.
I remember looking across the room when Barreto said, we're not going to vote on this. Like Phil and I immediately, like he was in the back and I was up on the side with my camera, and we just like looked at each other and kind of gave a thumbs up. And
right,
yeah, it was good to have a small win in Florida. We've gotten kind of beaten over the head for the past few years.
That was really a big win, though. I mean, there's nothing small about it. If that would have went through, that would have been devastating, Yeah,
I shouldn't have said small win, but I think what's troubling to a lot of people is we still don't know exactly what's coming.
Right.
So, even though it looks like this whitelist thing or the import whitelist is out, we don't know exactly what's coming, and that's why we're continuing to work on it, and we have to stay diligent and stay on them. But so yeah, it really was a big win, but it's hard to like openly declare victory when we just don't know exactly what's coming next. We know something's going to change in Florida with the regulations.
Right. Yeah, I know. I was really loving it right after that happened, because I kept looking at the analytics, and when you put in a search for FWC, it was Intrepid Exotics, Nerd, and like a news station. So, people are looking for FWC stuff, and the first thing they see is, reptile keepers talking about what happened, which was
it wasn't a good look for them, for sure.
No, that was good stuff.
Yeah, before we keep going, Chad, I just wanted to say, hey, good to see you again. You're way smaller on screen. I didn't recognize you.
That's the first thing Vanessa said to me when I walked up to her. She was like, "Wow, you're a lot bigger than you look on camera." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." Yeah.
Chad's a big guy. So
did you say you too, Vanessa? Oh no.
I'm actually 8 foot tall, but on here I look the same height as everybody else. So. Yeah, it was a good time, man. I'm glad that I could, try and pretend like I knew what I was doing and help out. I would recommend anybody who is going to a show to volunteer. All the people that were there were awesome people, and it's something that I believe in very much. And just real quick, I know we mentioned this earlier, like kind of in the beginning. I'm not sure who's here from the beginning and who's, popped in since, because I can't see the chat on my phone. I can understand people having money troubles, right? And I can understand if you can't afford to pay for a membership. If you can't afford to pay for a membership, hit one of us up. Hit me up on Instagram. It's Harsh Reptiles, same as it probably says in here. I'm work with a couple friends of mine, and we're willing to get people memberships for free, no question, no strings attached. I don't want anything from you. We're willing to do that. And I know there's a lot of other people who are also. aside from the paid membership part, if that's not something that you feel like doing, you can subscribe to the newsletters for free. You can subscribe to the YouTubes for free. You can follow them on social medias for free. You can, USARK Florida has a free membership. There's a lot of things you can do. Going on your Instagram, your Facebook, and just posting, an alert that USARK or whatever posts, all of that is free, right? And whether you have 50 friends who follow you or you have 50,000, it doesn't matter. Someone's going to see that. Like, I have people who follow me that aren't reptile people that just know me, and they see it, and people ask me questions. There's so much that we can do, and I also I say this a lot, that it's not enough to wait until something big happens, like a Lacey Act or the FWC incident, before we start trying to do something, right? We should be supporting these organizations all the time, whether there's something going on or not. So
well, I would
that's
say,
my
man,
little
we need
rant.
we need to be supporting ourselves. I mean, these two guys can't do it all for us. We've got to kind of police our own and stuff like that, and do as much preventative
100%.
stuff ahead of time as we can. Like I said, at public, I will beat this public education thing to the bitter end. I think it's so important that we get out and put positive stuff out there about our animals. Because you never know when that person that's going to be sitting in a council meeting voting is the person that just happened to walk by and lets their kid play with your, 6-foot monitor lizard or something like that. And when it comes time to vote on something, that's in the back of their head. It's like, oh, okay, well, let me learn more about this, because that one didn't kill my kid. So why should I think the rest of them are going to kill everybody else and make them illegal? So.
Yeah, on that point, make sure you do it properly, though. Taking your python into McDonald's is not the way to do it right. I'm not going to argue or debate on this. I understand where people say, my snake should be treated like someone else's dog. I get that argument, but that's not the real world, and that's not how it works. So just randomly taking your 15-foot berm to the public park is not the way to educate people about this stuff. We've actually had, I know, at least 2 instances where there were laws passed after someone did that exact same thing that banned ownership on those species, because someone decided to take their big berm or big retic just randomly out into a public park around all these people. But we have to realize that studies say that over 60% of people say they have a fear of snakes. So you can't just take an animal like that out in public and expect everything to be rainbows and roses. That's not how it's going to work.
I'm really glad you pointed that out.
Things are going to come from that. So, if you get a booth to do it at even like, what are they called? Renaissance Festival. I know a lot of people do that with their reptiles, but again, you're going to an event and the promoters know what's going to be in that booth, and you're taking your animal there, and the people who want to come engage with that animal can, but you're not forcing your animal upon anyone. So again, when you do it, make sure you do it properly, and don't just randomly be going around and putting your snake on people's shoulders and saying, do you want to? That is absolutely
I'm really.
There's also a thing called liability insurance.
Yep.
Yeah.
Consider getting some sort of liability insurance.
Yeah, I was just
before you start taking big snakes to random places and letting any random person come up and mess with them. Consider that even though your snake reacts one way with you, some person coming up and grabbing its head might not be, the best way. So
yeah, I mean that's where being a skilled handler comes in too, and you keep people from doing stuff like that. But like the events that we did last year, and it's the same thing for the events that Christina and I and some other folks are doing out here. I got you can get $1 million of event insurance for peanuts. It's not that much of a premium, but I think last summer before the event that we did, I was at Animal Control probably 3 times. Talked with the park director, everybody out there, and said, hey, you guys realize we're going to have 13, 15, 16-foot snakes out here, right? So if somebody calls and says, these guys have got a dinosaur out here, you understand what they're talking about. And like it worked out really well with the one that we did last year, because I got some traffic cones and I roped off a whole area in this park. And we had like the Science Center and Fish and Wildlife and a couple other agencies all set up for like this big event. And we had our animals out, but it was all in a roped in place where nobody could trip on them or stumble into it accidentally. And then we just invite people in as they as they wanted to interact with them and stuff. And it went really well. Nobody got hurt. Nobody got scared, because everything is all kind of contained.
Yeah.
But really, I'm really glad to point that out, because there are a lot of people that do dumb shit with their snakes.
I'm in California, and just a little shout out to a friend of mine, Gary from Constricted and Addicted. He did I would imagine he's done a couple of them, but he posted some pictures on Instagram a while back of him taking some animals out and doing like a public sort of outreach educational thing, which was awesome. Kudos to him for doing that. I would love to line something up where I could get involved in doing that with some of the people in my state also. But even at shows, like, I have friends who I don't sell animals. I've never taken anything to a show, but I go to shows to talk with my friends and hang out. And, I have friends who bring large animals to the shows, and they're fine with me handling these animals. And obviously at a reptile show, somebody holding a 12, 13, 14, 15-foot snake is going to bring a crowd around. So you have everyone from people who are reptile keepers to, people who just heard about it and decided to show up, kids, adults, people who have never touched a snake. And I got this big, 14-foot snake on me, and there's plenty of people who will walk up and not say anything at all and go to touch the snake's head, and I have to turn and make sure that, and it's not because I'm like, oh, something's going to happen, but it could. And I really enjoy being able to sort of interact with these people with the snake. Like, hey, if you want to pet it, I'll get down, for the kids, I'll get down on my knee with this snake on me. You can come and pet the snake and take pictures and stuff. And there's definitely good ways to go about it, and there's wrong ways to go about it. But it's extremely rewarding, man. I just love seeing the look on people's faces. And some of them are adults, and they've never touched a snake before. And they're like, oh, can I touch it? And they're all surprised that it's not slimy or that it feels so much different, and just be smart about it. Don't let a 15-foot snake's head get grabbed by some little kid,
And that's a great point. I know there are exceptions to every rule, but that's usually a good rule of thumb. If you're giving a presentation, you always maintain head control of the snake. The people can touch the snake anywhere else. There's no reason that they have to come up and stick their finger in the snake's nose, or a little kid come up and pinch its eyeball. There's no reason to even allow that to possibly happen. So again, you or some other handler can maintain head control, especially if you're working with a big snake. There is 12 other feet for someone to touch. There is no reason that someone has to touch the 8 or 9 inches that is the head. They got 10 feet plus back there. They can touch the snake anywhere. So yeah, always a good rule of thumb to maintain head control.
Yeah, for sure. Well, guys, we're pushing. How long we been on anyway?
Hour 47. An hour and 47 minutes.
Yeah,
you guys are talking about the public events. We actually are heading to one today. It's like a local business thing that we got invited to. All the business owners are like, snakes in town? No way, that's crazy. So hopefully we'll get some positive outreach to some business owners right here in our local area. But
we've got, for anybody out here in North Carolina, tomorrow at 10 o'clock a.m., the Carolina Herp Society is meeting at the Ashboro Zoo at 10 o'clock in the morning. And that's Rob and Jeremy, the guys from Nerd. They ended up moving down to North Carolina and started up the Carolina Herp Society, which is North and South Carolina. So there's meetings going on state to state. So we got the zoo thing going on in the morning. And then just like Christine was saying earlier, on the 4th of August, we got a summer camp that we're doing. It's like 2 hours for the summer camp, and then once it over, 2 hours for the public in a park out here in Archdale, North Carolina. So we're trying to get as much stuff going, keep it coming as we can.
Yeah, that's great. I saw someone posting about sample legislator letters. So that's awesome. If anyone has, another Lacey Act letter, whatever the effort is, if they can post and share around. So multiple versions of the same thing is absolutely fine. So obviously USARK and USARK Florida, we include, sample language that you can send in an email or fax or whatever. But I saw someone else posting they had written some letters, and yeah, that's great. Share those, get those out, because again, if it says something different, that's good. So even if you just reword what USARK or USARK Florida puts out there, whoever wrote that said that some people aren't comfortable writing their own letters, but that's why USARK and USARK Florida are there to give you that sample language. And if someone else wants to write their letters and share those, that's great.
Right. But we have got, before we let this wealth of knowledge go, and I know we haven't been keeping up a great deal with the comments. I've been going as well as I can. If you guys got any last minute questions to throw out there to anybody here, toss them out there. And let's see. Okay. Christina's putting the link up for the Carolina Herp Society. I'll have all this stuff in the description of the videos as well. So,
I know Tim, if I could say something, I just want to thank you for everything you've done supporting USARK and USARK Florida, but also bringing attention to these issues. I think it helps having, like Phil said, all different voices weighing in on all this stuff, but you're such a positive influence for the whole hobby and the industry as a whole. So I just want to thank you for everything that you've done.
That means a lot coming from you guys. It really does. But
I realized on a few previous podcasts and stuff, I called your business Intrepid Reptiles, so I extend my deepest apologies. I'm trying to make sure that I say Intrepid Exotics all the time now.
Well, funny part is most people can't figure out the Intrepid part. You're like, what exotics? Do you run strippers or something? Are you?
It just bugs me when I say somebody's business name wrong, especially somebody that's been really great. So anyways, I'm learning though. So yeah, everybody probably you're already following all of his stuff, but definitely follow all Tim's at Intrepid Exotics social media for sure. When are we getting you on TikTok, Tim? We talked about that. I thought we were going to do dance videos together.
Yeah, we talked about the Wednesday dance thing, but see, this is the thing, Daniel. I've got this knee problem. Remember on 300, where he asked him to kneel and he talked about the knee thing? Yeah, it's the knee. I just can't do the Wednesday dance, so I can't legally get on TikTok.
You can dance from the waist up.
Yeah. We'll get Phil and Tim on together to do a dance video. That's going to get our views.
I have shoulder and knee problems. There's no way I can even dance from the waist up.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
I got excuses for days, Daniel.
Phil's in such bad shape. I think he can only do 60 pull-ups in a suit. Is that what it was?
Yeah, I'll be a little shy of 60, I think, next time.
USARK Florida is on TikTok, everyone. If you are TikTokers, we're on like everything. We got on Threads the other day. We're not on everything, but we're trying to reach it. Because, there are some people that YouTube's like their only thing they watch. And then other people, I only do TikTok. Or I only do Facebook or Instagram. So we're trying not to leave people out. But, if you're a TikTok person, check us out there, too. And we haven't posted a dance video yet, actually. It turns out people are really, really interested in reptiles. And there's a lot of politics talk on there. I didn't realize how much politics, but there's a lot of that on TikTok.
We've got a lot of information silos to break through.
Yeah.
But that's a discussion for another day.
So, for anyone not subscribed to the USARK Florida various channels, Daniel puts a ton of content out there. And, it's entertaining stuff. For anybody who thinks that USARK Florida is just putting legislative stuff out there, obviously that stuff comes up and they got to put updates on the lawsuit. But Daniel puts a ton of great content out there. And obviously a lot of it's herp related, but, it's field herping and it's about species. Certainly not legislative based unless it needs to be. So check them all out.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Phil.
Yeah, I really appreciate all you guys coming through on such short order and just hanging out for a little while. Like I said, really pushing hard to get Jordan's new YouTube channel, Heartland Reptiles, pushed out, and Russ and Chad, their new Reptile Nerd Radio. Make sure you guys are following them. And I know Garrett's got to roll. You guys are probably busy. I'm starving, so I'm going to go grab me something to eat.
Sounds good.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Tim. If you guys don't know who Jordan is, you can actually go watch USARK's YouTube channel. I think he was the
You
last
just did a
video that
really
was
good
on there.
USARK.
You beat me to it.
And
I was just
there it is.
hey,
Yeah,
thanks. Yeah, that was last week.
Yep.
exactly. And we'll see you guys at Retic Fest. Thanks so much, everybody. Appreciate all you guys.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Really looking forward
Thank
to the
you so
Reptile
much,
Nerd
guys.
Radio stuff. I subscribed already, so
Cool.
we'll see
Well,
you
we
on there.
appreciate
Awesome,
that.
guys.
Yeah, thank you guys for jumping on and letting us chat with you, or letting us jump on and chat with you, however you would say that. Always a pleasure. So
We'll do more. We'll get some animals out next time.
Oh yeah.
yeah,
awesome.
I know. I've seen some comments complaining that none of us had animals out, so I guess
Right. Yeah, I know. We're slackers. I'm just getting back into the live stream
animal
thing.
Wait, I got a Ben
That's all I'm
Grinshaw
saying.
snake carving. It's
There we
kind
go.
there you go.
of closest thing I got handy.
There you go. All right. We'll see you guys later. Have a good
Awesome,
one,
man.
everyone.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you.
Bye.